My name is Ashley Kennedy. I'm a tick biologist for DNREC Division of Fish and Wildlife Mosquito Control Section, and I've been coming to White Clay Creek State Park as well as 11 other parks throughout the state to collect ticks as part of our surveillance program. So you might see me walking along the trails dragging this cloth behind me, and ticks will just grab onto it like it's a person or a deer or another animal walking by, and then I can easily spot them because it's white and pick them off and put them in ethanol. And then later on, we test them with some collaborators at Deltec Community College. We test them for different pathogens of tick-borne disease, like Lyme disease and babesiosis and ehrlichiosis, and a bunch of other things too. And what we've been finding so far this year, we're seeing the most common species are American dog ticks, Lone Star ticks, black-legged ticks, Gulf Coast ticks, and the new invasive Asian Longhorn tick, which has only been here, as far as we know, since 2019. It was first detected in Delaware last year. It's an invasive species from East Asia that is associated with a lot of different pathogens in its native range. Luckily, in the United States, it doesn't seem to be biting people very much. It's been found more on pets and wildlife than on people, but we're keeping an eye on it because there's always the possibility that it might vector agents of human disease. And as for our native species, the black-legged tick is the one that we worry about the most because it is associated with the most pathogens. So we know that it carries the causative agents of Lyme disease, babesiosis, and anaplasmosis. And in some parts of the US, it is also associated with Powassan virus, which luckily has not been reported from Delaware yet, as far as I know. The Lone Star tick is one we want to keep an eye out for because it can cause a red meat allergy or mammalian meat allergy. So some people who are bitten by that tick find that later on when they eat meat, they display an immune allergic reaction to it. So that can present in different ways, like with hives and itchiness or with GI symptoms like nausea and upset stomach. And as far as we know, there's no real treatment for that. The best you can do is just kind of adapt your diet to avoid mammalian meat products. Another thing we watch out for with the Lone Star tick is that it can vector Ehrlichia bacteria, which cause ehrlichiosis, which has kind of generalized flu-like symptoms. And then lastly, with the dog tick, the American dog tick, it can vector the bacteria that cause Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Luckily, that's very rare. Fewer than 1% of ticks carry that one. So even if you are bitten, you'll probably be okay, statistically speaking. And with all of these ticks, the sooner you can remove them after they've bitten you, the better, because the longer they're attached, the higher the likelihood that they'll transmit a pathogen to you. So that's why it's really important to do tick checks anytime that you go outdoors into tick habitat. Make sure that you're taking a shower within a couple hours of coming indoors and checking all your nooks and crannies because they like to hide. And you'll want to make sure that you're keeping your pets up to date on tick preventatives as well. So the most common surveillance method that we use is called tick dragging or tick flagging, and that's using this flag, which is it's 1 meter square of white fabric, and I'll walk along the trails in the state parks dragging this behind me over the vegetation, and ticks will just grab onto it. It's not treated with anything. There's nothing specifically about it that attracts them. It's just the movement of the cloth dragging over the vegetation makes them think that it's some kind of animal walking by. So they grab on. They're questing in the environment. Questing is actually a technical term that means they're waiting for a host and they have their first pair of legs outstretched, just ready to grab on. And then we also have a passive surveillance program where people can send us ticks that they find on themselves, or veterinarians or wildlife rehabbers can send us ticks that they find on pets and wildlife. And so if you happen to get a tick on you, you can take it to White Clay Creek State Park and leave it for us there with some general information about when and where you collected it, and it will go towards our surveillance program and help us learn more about when and where certain tick species are the most common, and then we'll also screen them for pathogens at a later time to figure out if we have any hot spots in the state for tick-borne diseases. And there's an app called the Tick app, which you can get at the App Store or Google Play, wherever you get your apps. It's free, available for download, and it's a win-win because it helps us crowdsource data about where ticks are found, and then it helps you because not only does it provide general information about ticks and answer some of the most frequently asked questions, but also you can upload pictures of any ticks that you find, and they will be identified for you by an expert. And that's important. It's important to know which species you find because different species are associated with different risks. So not all ticks are equal when it comes to disease risk.
Hi, my name is Erin Hassett. I work at DNREC Mosquito Control. I do tick and mosquito research and surveillance. And I want to talk to you today about where ticks are found, how you can avoid ticks, and certain personal protection measures you can take when you're out. So I want to preface this with saying that we want to still encourage people to go to the parks, and ticks should not deter anyone from recreating in parks. With that being said, when you go out to the parks, you should know where ticks are at and the prevention measures to take so you stay safe. So different ticks prefer different types of habitats and at different life stages. So nymphs, especially the black-legged tick, will prefer like leaf litter. They're a lot smaller, and so they can be found in woods and on trails. And so it's really important to kind of avoid going off the trails into the vegetation where ticks might want to latch onto you. Adults will, as Ashley mentioned before, they'll climb up higher on taller vegetation and will be on more grassier, like weedy material. And so trying to avoid going into the brush and weeds and staying on the trail is really important. Certain prevention measures that you can take when you go out are to wear light-colored clothing so that if any ticks do get on you when you're outside, you can really easily see them. And just checking yourself periodically when you're out in the woods is probably the most important thing to do, because removing the tick will keep you from getting tick bites and any potential pathogens they may carry. But as Ashley had mentioned, removing the tick quickly is important because the longer it's attached to you, the probability that it can potentially give you a pathogen that can cause disease increases. But you do have a window of time because it takes a certain amount of time for that pathogen to get from the tick to you. But checking regularly, removing ticks that are on you will keep you safe. When I go out collecting ticks, I tuck my pants into my socks, so if ticks get on my shoes, they won't crawl up my pant leg. I wear insect repellent on my pants, so if any ticks attach to my pants, the insect repellent will target the ticks. When you do get home, showering after you go outside and just doing a full body tick check, because ticks do like to go in nooks and crannies, so like your armpits, behind your ears, on the waistline. So if your shirt is tucked in, they will attach on your waistline, but it's really easy to see, so you can just remove them. And how you remove them is you get a pair of forceps or tweezers, and it's really important that when you have a tick on you, you take the tweezers and go to the very base of your skin where the tick is attached. And it's important to not grab it and twist. You want to grab it at the base and just lift up. If you twist, you might break the mouth parts off. And so just grabbing and lifting. We want to discourage people from covering it with Vaseline or nail polish and waiting for the tick to remove, because the longer the tick is attached, the more dangerous it might be for you. And then burning it with a match is discouraged as well. The quickest and fastest and safest thing to do is just use tweezers and grab it and pull it off. So ticks have a couple different life stages. So they start off as eggs. Then when they hatch out of their eggs, they're larvae, and then they turn into nymphs, and then they turn into adults. And so these different life stages appear at different times of the year. So eggs are typically laid by the female in the spring, and they will hatch typically in the fall. So you'll see a lot of larvae start to appear in late June and August, and then they will overwinter, and you will see the nymphs. They'll turn into nymphs, and the nymphs will start questing in the spring and early summer. So when people start to go outside and enjoy the parks, that's typically spring and early summer. So people will most likely get exposed to the nymphs during June to mid-July. And nymphs are pretty tiny, so it's really important to check yourself for ticks periodically during this window of time. After they're nymphs, they will feed on an animal and then wait a period of time, and then they'll turn into the adults. And adults are active pretty much all year round. There are peaks in higher numbers of adults in November and early spring, like April. And so when you're outside in the wintertime, when the snow has melted, there's still a chance you might get a tick on you. And so doing tick checks and taking preventative measures, even in the wintertime, is really important because ticks are still active. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this, and don't forget to check yourself for ticks when you go outside.